So the Saints just went to 2-0 today, beating the Carolina Panthers 2017. This game just finished as I'm recording it. The Saints just took their final knee of the game. So I was going to go over some of the stats and some of the notes I took throughout the game to kind of just break down how the Saints performed, the highs, the lows, because there was definitely some of both. And at the end of the game, the Saints again gave up a touchdown I shouldn't have given up. So I'll start with Derek Carr. He finished 21 on 36 for 228 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He had 4 sacks, lost of 25 yards. So Derek Carr did have a one really bad interception. He threw in a triple coverage to Chris Olave. It was really unexcusable. Von Bell, former Saint, dropped back perfectly. But even Von Bell wasn't there. I really don't think Chris Olave was that open. Derek Carr to force it. And give the Panthers great field position. I believe they scored a field goal on that drive. No, actually, my mistake. That's when the Saints ended up getting the ball back and getting sacked again. So now let's go to the rushing. Taysom Hill was our leading rusher. He had 9 carries for 75 yards. And he had the 10-yard rush to ice the game. Taysom Hill was phenomenal. The way they mixed up Taysom Hill's runs today was so much better than last week against the Tennessee Titans. They get Taysom Hill runs to the weak side, some to the strong side. They even sold some of the passing ability of Taysom Hill to keep the defense a little bit more, not just stood in the box, keep them respectable. And Taysom Hill did have a nice 10-yard run to ice the game. And then we had Tony Jones, 12 carries for 34 yards, and he did have our 2 touchdowns of the day. So Jamal Williams went out in the first quarter with a hamstring injury. He had to be carted off. So we're still out without Alvin Kamara for next week. So look for the Saints to potentially see if Kendra Miller can come back healthy next week. He was a scratch earlier in the day, so that's probably meaning he's close to returning. But if he's not close to returning, look for the Saints to maybe bring someone in, like maybe a Kareem Hunt. We were interested earlier. It depends how much money he's wanting and everything. Jamal Williams cannot suit up next week. Hamstring injuries can really linger. Don't want to bring him back too early. And we still have one more game against the Green Bay Packers, in which Alvin Kamara will miss. Before Jamal Williams left, he had 9 carries for 29 yards. And so now let's get to the receivers. So our leading receiver was Chris Olave with 6 catches for 86 yards. And you can see in the picture right here, he has one-handed catch that sparked Saints' first touchdown of the game. It was absolutely phenomenal. I feel like at this moment, this is when the momentum completely changed into the Saints' favor, and the Saints really never looked back until that final drive of the game. The Saints gave up a touchdown. This led to the Tony Jones rushing touchdown. The offensive line was playing phenomenal after this. They were getting so much push in the running game, and I think the Saints even didn't use it enough towards the end of the game. They should have kept using it because Tony Jones was getting so many yards at the end of the game. But our leading extreme receiver was Rashid Shaheed. He had 4 catches for 63 yards along with 45 yards. So that also set up our second touchdown of the game. When Derek Carr had an amazing punt fake, he stood up in the pocket, had the defensive line jumping as he was going to throw it, but instead he stepped up, had Rashid Shaheed on an out and up, and an absolutely perfectly placed ball. And then our next receiver was Michael Thomas, 7 catches for 55 yards. Michael Thomas wasn't really involved very much in the second half, but in the first half he was getting involved all kinds, especially on that one drive when we couldn't score in the red zone, had to settle for a field goal. He ended having a nice catch that they were initially ruled incompletion, but it was clearly a completion after review. Okay, and so now let's go to our defense, kind of the highlights of our defense. So we had Carl Granson forcing a fumble. Him and Cameron Jordan were creating a lot of pressure on Bryce Young, getting him uncomfortable, getting him outside the pocket, and ultimately just creating havoc on him throughout the game. Our leading tackler today was Marcus May. He did have one really bad missed tackle on Bryce Young that sparked their field goal drive later in the game. I think he maybe thought Bryce Young was going to slide. Bryce Young instead just moved to the side, and Marcus May was just whiffing. Demario Davis also had a really good game. He did have a sack on Bryce Young, and he was just playing phenomenal throughout the game, exploding. The Panthers had a little bit of run success in the beginning of the game, but towards the end of the game, the Panthers' run success was not very good. So now let's talk about some of the highs and lows of the Saints. The obvious high is the Saints' defense. The Saints' defense was phenomenal throughout the day, creating Bryce Young gets out of the pocket, creating a lot of early penalties, some holding, some false start that created the Panthers to move back in the chains, having to force them to throw on earlier downs, which led to second and longs and even third and longs. The Saints had a lot of sacks today, and there were a lot of near sacks that Bryce Young had to throw the ball away. And now let's talk about some of the lows. A lot of them come on the offensive end. Derek Carr, that one interception really hurt. And then the offensive line in the first half. Again, the second half, they were a little bit better. Beginning of the third quarter, it was still shaky, but towards the end of the game, when the Saints were relying more on the run game, The offensive line was a lot better. But Derek Carr cannot have this is back-to-back weeks with the inevitably interception. That just cannot happen. The Saints offense hasn't been clicking, and so every possession really matters. We can't let our defense be put in bad positions. This is the first touchdown at the end of the game that the Saints defense has given up all season. We can't expect that the whole season. The Saints are playing a good offense next week in in the Packers, and they're going to score a lot of points. They're a high flying offense. Aaron Jones can come back. Them and AJ Dillon are a great running attack. And then so the Saints offense really have to start stepping up. Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, at the end of the game, they both had big plays, which we were expecting throughout the game. But I think the Saints really need to get going, especially in that first half. They just couldn't convert, especially in the red zone. The red zone offense is what's going to win you a Super Bowl. We've seen countless times when teams cannot convert field goals into touchdowns in the red zone. They ultimately cannot compete, especially in the playoffs when we're going to face teams such as the San Francisco 49ers who look amazing. So let's talk about the defense. The defense at the end of the game, I don't know if Dennis Allen was just being a little too conservative or the defense just wasn't in the right assignments, but they let Bryce Young get a bunch of completions, get going, easy completions out of bounds, stopping the clock. What you want to do at the end of the game, they had about 3 minutes left. You want to get some completions inside the middle of the field, force the Panthers. You can get 10 to 12 yards, but keep the clock rolling. The Panthers are getting 7, 8 yards, but getting out of bounds, which is so much better. And then ultimately, when the Saints started trying to bring a little bit of pressure, Bryce Young was already in a rhythm, and the Panthers ultimately scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to lead the game up to an onside kick when the Saints clearly were in control throughout the entire second half, basically, and even part of the first half. So now let's get into a little preview of next week, what we're going to see. So Saints are playing the Green Bay Packers. I believe it is in New Orleans. It'll be a 10 o'clock game. Oh, sorry, it's not in New Orleans. It's in Green Bay. Jordan Love versus Derek Carr. Jordan Love has looked, I think, fairly decent. I saw bits and pieces of his first 2 games. If they can get Christian Watson back, I think that's someone who can really create big playability for the Green Bay Packers. And Saints defense is going to definitely have to be up to the task. We saw today Paul Debo. He looked okay. He had one really bad pass interference at the end of the game. Again, it was about 20 yards. He turned his head, but he was just holding the receiver as he turned his head, which is you just can't do. Alontae Taylor, my apologies, did show some good flashes. They had him in the slot, sometimes a little, I think, too far back off the receiver. Let Adam Thielen run crossing routes right in front of him. Alontae Taylor is really fast, but when you give that much separation to a ultimate good receiver like Adam Thielen, Bryce Young is just able to easily have completions. And a better quarterback like Jordan Love, who's a lot more experience, has a better offensive coordinator, Matt LaFleur. I think they definitely can have some success on the New Orleans Saints, but I think the Saints will play a lot easier of a defense. They have Jair Alexander on Chris Olave, but the Saints have so many different playmakers where I don't think they're really going to be able to take out one receiver in particular. Chris Olave plays all throughout the field. I can see Jair Alexander staying more on like Michael Thomas. Jair Alexander loves those physical type of matchups, which is someone like Michael Thomas will go back and forth throughout the game. And then also talking about a little bit of the secondary, Tyrann Mathieu played pretty good today. Marshall Lattimore, really didn't even see a lot of him today. He was just basically in coverage the whole game. I don't even think there was a receiver who caught a pass on him today. He did have one pass defend on a big third down that forced Carolina Panthers to punt. Marshall Lattimore did have 5 tackles in total. Yeah, it was just a great team win by the New Orleans Saints. Winning a division game in the NFL is not easy by any means. The Panthers had our number throughout last year. I believe they went 2-0 against us last year. We had a terrible loss. I think it was in week 2. No, actually it was week 3 when Michael Thomas went down with his turf toe injury. So these are not wins that are just gimmies by any means. Division upsets happen all the time. So the Bengals, I thought they were better than the Browns and the Ravens lose both of their games. Division games, you saw the Broncos lose to the Raiders. The Broncos haven't looked very good throughout the first 2 games, but I don't think the Raiders are going to be very good coming into the season either. Division upsets happen all the time, so when the Saints can get a nice win against I think it's a quality Panthers team. I don't think this division is as bad as people put it out to be. Falcons are 2-0, Bucks are 2-0. They both have their unique ways of trying to win. Panthers very run heavy, trying to chew the clock. Baker Mayfield is lighting it up out there, and I can't wait for those matches we play in the upcoming weeks as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I think this was a great Saints win today. They had some ups and downs. I think this is good that we can go through growing pains with Derek Carr, with some of the receivers not being on the right page. the defense, making some lapses at the end of the game. Just trying to get everything right before we play some really quality opponents. But we can still get those wins. That at the end of the season, wins are wins. You don't care about who you won them against, how they happen. The wins just need to keep stacking up, and that's exactly what the New Orleans Saints are doing. These are wins that we couldn't get last year, and ultimately led us missing out of the playoffs by one game. So I think it's a great team win today. Let me know what you guys think now in the comment section down below. And stay tuned for some more updates as the Saints get ready to prepare for the Green Bay Packers on a short week. This will be a big game. Just kind of see where the Saints stand. The Packers, I don't think, are any pushover. They're a very quality opponent with a great offense and I would say about an average defense. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Peace.